Krishna, welcome to today's reading of Srimad Bhagavatam. We are starting new. We finished on Thursday. John finished reading the last few verses of first Canto, where Shukadeva Goswami appears and Parikshit Maharaj asks some questions at the end. So now second Canto starts off from there. And before that, before we go, we recite again the Mahima Stotra of Sarva Shastri Viyusha Sarva Vidaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada, a nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths. You are the only giver of sight that all revolves. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavatam Prabhu Kandidanto Ditaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. A life heir of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, all Master Srimad Bhagavatam. You are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Padnayam Prema Varshaksharayate Sarvada Sarvasevaya Shri Krishna Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Shri Krishna himself. Adhika Bandhu Matsangi Madguru Mad Mahadana Manishtaraka Madbhagyam Madananda Namostite. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Sadhu Sadhu Tadaya Adini Chotinaraka Hanamunchakarajima Premarikantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Hare Krishna. Today's reading of Srimad Bhagavatam. We start with the beginning of the second canto, which is entitled The Cosmic Manifestation. So, as far as I remember, last time I read second canto, it becomes a bit technical later on, but we'll manage together to go through, and maybe we'll have to explain more or just hold it slower. But let's just dive in. Just before we start, so the last few verses before, at the end of the Canto 1, or the last chapter, is when Shukadeva Goswami, the spiritual master of Parikshit Maharaj, appears, and enters the assembly, sits down, gets treatment pertaining to a saint, and Maharaj Parikshit receives him and starts inquiring for him. So this isn't then the original Srimad Bhagavatam, the narration of Srimad Bhagavatam. It starts now, but then we actually did the whole canto before it starts. How come? No, it's actually everything else is included. How it came about. So this is also included in Srimad Bhagavatam because it was retold by Sutta Goswami to sages of Narayana. So that's a story within a story. So just to recap the questions, there were some questions at the end of first canto, and Parikshit Maharaj asks. I'm just going to repeat this because this is how then the second canto starts with Shukadeva Goswami start answering. So 37 of the last 37 of 19 chapter. First canto is a guru of saints, show the way of perfection for all persons and especially for one who is about to die. Let's see. Please let me know what a man should hear, chant, remember and worship, and also what he should not do. It is said that you hardly stay in the houses of men long enough to milk a cow. And then the last verse. Thus being questioned sweetly by the king, Shukadeva Swami, who knew the principles of religion, began his reply. And now we started in the Canto. We start with invocation, which we already did. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So that's the beginning. Translation. O my Lord, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Purport. Vasudevaya means to Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. Since by chanting the name of Krishna, Vasudeva, one can achieve all the good results of charity, austerity and penances, it is to be understood that by the chanting of this mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, the author or the speaker or any one of the readers of Srimad Bhagavatam is offering respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord Krishna, the reservoir of all pleasure. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the principles of creation are described, and thus the first canto may be called creation. Similarly, in the second canto, the post-creation cosmic manifestation is described. The different planetary systems are described in the second canto as different parts of the universal body of the Lord. For this reason, the second canto may be called the cosmic manifestation. What's the name of the first canto?
The creation.
And now we have cosmic manifestation. There are 10 chapters in the second canto. And in these 10 chapters, the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam and the different symptoms of this purpose are narrated. The first chapter describes the glories of chanting, and it hints at the process by which the neophyte devotee may perform meditation on the universal form of the Lord. In the first verse, Shukadeva Goswami replies to the questions of Maharaj Parikshit, who asked him about one's duty at the point of death. Maharaj Parikshit was glad to receive Shukadeva Goswami, and he was proud of being a descendant of Arjuna, the intimate friend of Krishna. Personally, he was very humble and meek, but he expressed his gladness that Lord Krishna was very kind to his grandfathers, the son of Pandu, especially his own grandfather, Arjuna. And because Lord Krishna was always pleased with Maharaj Parikshit's family, at the verge of Maharaj Parikshit's death, Shukadeva Goswami was sent to help him in the process of self-realization. Maharaj Parikshit was a devotee of Lord Krishna from his childhood, so he had natural affection for Krishna. Shukadeva Goswami could understand his devotion. Therefore, he welcomed the questions about the king's duty, because the king hinted that the worship of Lord Krishna is the ultimate function of every living entity. Shukadeva Goswami welcomed the suggestion and said, "Because you have raised questions about Krishna, your question is most glorious." The translation of the first verse is as follows. So, first verse begins. Shukadeva Goswami said, "My dear king, your question is glorious because it is very beneficial to all kinds of people. The answer to this question is the prime subject matter for hearing, and it is approved by all transcendentalists." Purport. Even the very question is so nice that it is the best subject matter for hearing. Simply by such questioning and hearing, one can achieve the highest perfectional stage of life. Because Lord Krishna is the original Supreme Person, any question about him is original and perfect. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that the highest perfection of life is to achieve the transcendental loving service of Krishna. Because questions and answers about Krishna elevate one to that transcendental position, the questions of Maharaj Parikshit about Krishna philosophy are greatly glorified. Maharaj Parikshit wanted to absorb his mind completely in Krishna, and such absorption can be effected simply by hearing about the uncommon activities of Krishna. For instance, in the Bhagavad Gita it is stated that simply by understanding the transcendental nature of Lord Krishna's appearance, disappearance, and activities, One can immediately return home back to Godhead and never come back to this miserable condition of material existence. It is very auspicious, therefore, to hear always about Krishna. So Maharaj Parikshit requested Shukra Goswami to narrate the activities of Krishna so that he could engage his mind in Krishna. The activities of Krishna are not different from Krishna himself. As long as one is engaged in hearing such transcendental activities of Krishna, he remains aloof from the conditional life of material existence. The topics of Lord Krishna are so auspicious that they purify the speaker, the hearer, and the inquirer. They are compared to the Ganges water which flow from the toe of Lord Krishna. Wherever the Ganges water go, they purify the land and the person who bathes in them. Similarly, Krishna Katha, or the topics of Krishna, are so pure that wherever they are spoken, the place, the hearer, the inquirer, the speaker, and all concerned become purified. Text 2. Those persons who are materially engrossed, being blind to the knowledge of ultimate truth, leave many subject matters for hearing in human society, O Emperor. Purport. In the revealed scriptures, there are two nomenclatures for the householder's life. One is Grihastha and the other is Grihamedi. Grihasthas are those who live together with wife and children, but live transcendentally for realizing the ultimate truth. The Grihamedis, however, are those who live only for the benefit of the family members, extended or centralized, and thus are envious of others. The word Medi indicates jealousy of others. The Grihamedis, being interested in the family affairs only, are certainly envious of others. Therefore, one Grihamedi is not on good terms with another Grihamedi, and in the extended form, one community, society, or nation is not on good terms with another counterpart of selfish interest. No. So, did I get that correct? Did I skip the line? Yes? It's not, society and nation is not in good terms with another counterpart of selfish interest. Yeah. Thank you. Although I had light there. You can see. In the age of Kali, all the householders are jealous of one another because they are blind to the knowledge of ultimate truth. They have many subject matters for hearing, political, scientific, social, economic, and so on, but due to a poor fount of knowledge, they set aside the question of the ultimate miseries of life, namely miseries of birth, death, old age, and disease. Actually, the human life is meant for making an ultimate solution to birth, death, old age, and disease. But the Grihamedis, being illusioned by the material nature, forget everything about self-realization. The ultimate solution to the problems of life is to go back home, back to Godhead, and thus, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 8.16, the miseries of material existence, birth, death, old age, and disease, are removed. The process of going back home, back to Godhead, is to hear about the Supreme Lord and His name, form, attributes, pastimes, paraphernalia, and variegatedness. Foolish people do not know this. They want to hear something about the name, form, etc. of everything temporary, and they do not know how to utilize this propensity of hearing for the ultimate good. Misguided as they are, they also create some false literatures about the name, form, attributes, etc. of the ultimate truth. One should not therefore become a Grihamedi simply to exist for envying others. One should become a real householder in terms of the scriptural injunctions. Text 3. If I get a look at this machine. The lifetime of such an envious householder is passed at night, either in sleeping or in sex indulgence, and in the daytime, either in making money or maintaining family members. All these verses, all these couple verses are the one I studied more in depth at our courses, so they're called memorization shlokas. Purport. The present human civilization is primarily based on the principles of sleeping and sex indulgence at night and earning money in the day and spending the same for family maintenance. Such a form of human civilization is condemned by the Bhagavata school. Because human life is a combination of matter and spirit soul, the whole process of Vedic knowledge is directed at liberating the spirit soul from the contamination of matter. The knowledge concerning this is called Atma Tattva. Those men who are too materialistic are unaware of this knowledge and are more inclined to economic development for material enjoyment. Such materialistic men are called karmis or fruitive laborers, and they are allowed to regulate economic development or association of women for sex indulgence. Those who are above the karmis, that is, the jnanis, yogis, and devotees, are strictly prohibited from sex indulgence. The karmis are more or less devoid of Atma Tattva knowledge, and as such their life is spent without spiritual profit. The human life is not meant for hard labor for economic development, nor is it meant for sex indulgence like that of the dogs and hogs. It is specially meant for making a solution to the problems of material life and the miseries thereof. So the karmis waste their valuable human life by sleeping and sex indulgence at night and by laboring hard in the daytime to accumulate wealth, and after doing so, they try to improve the standard of materialistic life. The materialistic way of life is described here in a nutshell, and how foolishly men waste the boon of human life is described as follows.
We need some water or something. Yeah. Block nose.
Oh, thanks. I drank lots of water before. Just the bug is spreading. Can I get some honey? Text 4. This is also an important verse. Persons devoid of Atma Tattva do not inquire into the problems of life, being too attached to the fallible soldiers like the body, children, and wife. Although sufficiently experienced, they still do not see their inevitable destruction. Purport. This material world is called the world of death. Every living being, beginning from Brahma, whose duration of life is some thousands of millions of years, down to the germs who live for a few seconds only, is struggling for existence. Therefore, this life is a sort of fight with material nature, which imposes death upon all. In a human form of life, a living being is competent enough to come to an understanding of this great struggle for existence, but being too attached to family members, society, country, etc., he wants to win over the invincible material nature by the aid of bodily strength, children, wife, relatives, etc. Although he is sufficiently experienced in the matter by dint of past experience and previous examples of his deceased predecessors, he does not see that the so-called fighting soldiers, like the children, relatives, society members, and countrymen, are all fallible in the great struggle. One should examine the fact that his father or his father's father has already died, and that he himself is therefore also sure to die. And similarly, his children, who are the would-be fathers of their children, will also die in due course. No one will survive in this struggle with material nature. The history of human society definitely proves it, yet the foolish people still suggest that in the future they will be able to live perpetually with the help of material science. This profound of knowledge exhibited by human society is certainly misleading, and it is all due to ignoring the constitution of the living soul. This material world exists only as a dream, due to our attachment to it. Otherwise, the living soul is always different from the material nature. The great ocean of material nature is tossing with the waves of time, and the so-called living conditions are something like foaming bubbles, which appear before us as bodily self, wife, children, society, countrymen, etc. Due to a lack of knowledge of self, We become victimized by the force of ignorance and thus spoil the valuable energy of human life in a vain search after permanent living conditions, which are impossible in this material world. Our friends, relatives, and so-called wives and children are not only fallible, but also bewildered by the glamour of material existence. As such, they cannot save us. Still we think that we are safe within the orbit of family or country. The whole materialistic advancement of human civilization is like the decoration of a dead body. It's a dead body, a few days, generation of this dead body. Shukadeva Goswami is pointing out the duty of the human being after showing the actual position of bewildered human activity. Persons who are devoid of the knowledge of Atma Tattva are misguided, but those who are devotees of the Lord and transcend. Text 5. All descendant of King Bharata, one who desires first must hear about, glorify, and also remember the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul, the good and the savior from all. She materially attached in the valuable the improvement of life, indulging in sex life, developing economic conditions, and maintaining a band of relatives. Being engaged in all these materialistic activities, the living soul entails actions. This entails the chain of birth and the aquatics, the vegetables, the reptiles, the birds, beasts, man, and then again the human form, which is a chance for getting out of the cycle of fruitive action. Therefore, if one desires freedom from this vicious circle, then one must cease to act as a karmi or enjoyer of the results of one's work, good or bad. One should not do anything, either good or bad, on his own, but must execute everything. Half of the ultimate work is recommended in the Bhagavad Gita 9:27. Also, where instruction is given for working on the Lord's account. Therefore, one should first of all hear about the Lord. When one has scrutinizingly, one must glorify his acts and deeds, and thus it will become possible to remember constantly the transcendental nature of the Lord. Hearing about and glorifying the Lord are identical with the transcendental nature of the Lord. And by so doing, one will be always in association with the Lord. This brings freedom from all sorts of fear. The Lord is the super soul, Paramatma, present in the hearts of all living beings, and thus by the above hearing and glorifying process, the Lord invites the association of all in His creation. This process of hearing about and glorifying the Lord is applicable for everyone, whoever he may be, and it will lead one to the ultimate success in everything in which one may be engaged by providence. There are many classes of human beings: the fruitive workers, the empiric philosophers, the mystic yogis, and ultimately the unalloyed devotees. For all of them, one and the same process is applicable for achieving the desired success. Everyone wants to be free from all kinds of fear, and everyone wants the fullest extent of happiness in life. The perfect process for achieving this here and now is recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is uttered by such a great authority as Srila Shukadeva Goswami. By hearing about and glorifying the Lord, all a person's activities become molded into spiritual activities, and thus all conceptions of material abilities become completely vanquished. Text 6.
Could I ask, unalloyed devotees, that means they're not polished?
Unalloyed, it comes from the metallurgy, as far as I remember. It's pure without any additives.
Mixture, yeah.
That's I heard it, Prabhupada kind of borrowed, he saw this word when he came to the US. I think he asked, he was walking down somewhere and there was some matter agitation. It says unalloyed. Pure.
Yeah.
6. The highest perfection of human life achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, by practice of mystic powers, or by perfect discharge of occupational duty, is to remember the personality of Godhead at the end of life. What is the highest perfection of life? Okay, just so we know. Perfect. Narayana is the transcendental personality of Godhead beyond the material creation. Everything that is created, sustained, and at the end annihilated is within the compass of the Mahatattva, material principle, and is known as the material world. The existence of Narayana, or the personality of Godhead, is not within the jurisdiction of this Mahatattva, and as such, the name, form, attributes, etc. of Narayana are beyond the jurisdiction of the material world. By the speculation of empiric philosophy, which discerns matter from spirit, or by cultivation of mystic powers, which ultimately helps the performer to reach the planet of the universe or beyond the universe, or by discharge of religious duties, one can achieve the highest perfection, provided one is able to reach the stage of Narayana Smriti, or constant remembrance of the personality of God. This is possible only by the association of a pure devotee, who can give a finishing touch to the transcendental activities of all jnanis, yogis, or karmis, in terms of prescribed duties defined in the scriptures. There are many historical instances of the achievement of spiritual perfection, such as that of the Sanakadi rishis, or the 9 celebrated Yogendras, who attained perfection only after being situated in the devotional service of the Lord. None of the devotees of the Lord ever deviated from the path of devotional service by taking to other methods as adopted by the jnanis or yogis. Everyone is anxious to achieve the highest perfection of his particular activity, and it is indicated herein that such perfection is Narayana Smriti, for which everyone must endeavor his best. In other words, life should be molded in such a manner that one is able to progressively remember the personality of God in every step of life. 7. King Parikshit, mainly the topmost transcendentalists who are above the regulative principles and restrictions, take pleasure in describing the glories of the Lord. Purport: the topmost transcendentalist is a liberated soul and is therefore not within the purview of the regulative principles. A neophyte who is intended to be promoted to the spiritual plane is guided by the spiritual master of the regulative principles. He may be compared to a patient who is treated by various restrictions under medical jurisdiction. Generally, liberated souls also take pleasure in describing the transcendental activities. As mentioned above, since Narayana, Hari, the personality of God, is beyond the material creation, his form and attributes are not material. The topmost transcendentalists, or the liberated souls, realize him by advanced experience of transcendental knowledge, and therefore they take pleasure in the discussion of the transcendental qualities of the Lord's pastimes. In the Bhagavad Gita 4.9, the personality of Godhead declares that his appearance and activities are all divya, or transcendental. The common man, who is under the spell of material energy, takes it for granted that the Lord is like one of us, and therefore he refuses to accept the transcendental natures of the Lord's form, name, etc. The topmost transcendental is interested in anything material, and his taking interest in the nature of the Lord's activities is definite proof that the Lord is not like one of us in the material world. In the Vedic literature also, it is confirmed that the Supreme Lord is one, but that he is engaged in his transcendental path in the company of his unalloyed devotees, and that simultaneously he is present as the super soul, an expansion of Baladev, in the heart of all living entities. Therefore, the highest perfection of the transcendental realization is to take pleasure in hearing and describing the transcendental qualities of the Lord, and not in merging into his impersonal Brahmas. For which an impersonalist monist aspires. Real transcendental pleasure is realized in the glorification of the transcendental Lord, and not in the feeling of being situated in his impersonal feature. But there are also others who are not the top transcendentalists, but are in the lower stages, and who do not take pleasure in describing transcendental activity. Rather, they discuss such activities of the Lord formally with the aim of merging into his existence. 8. At the end of Para Yuga, I studied this great supplement of Vedic literature named Srimad Bhagavatam, which is equal to all the Vedic Srimad Bhagavatam and Vyasadeva. Purport: the statement made by Srila Shukadeva Goswami, the topmost transcendentalist, who is beyond the jurisdiction of relations existence, mainly takes to the task of hearing about and glorifying personality of God, is verified by his personal example. Shukadeva Goswami, being a recognized liberated soul and the topmost transcendentalist, accepted by all of the topmost sages present in the meeting during the last 7 days of reflection. He cites from the example of his life that he himself was attracted to the Lord. He studied Srimad Bhagavatam from his great father, Srimad Vyasadeva. Srimad Bhagavatam, or for that matter, any other scientific literature, cannot be studied at home by one's own intellectual capacity. The books of anatomy or physiology are available in the market, but may become a qualified medical practitioner simply by reading such books at home. One has to be admitted to the medical college and study the books under the guidance of learned professors. Similarly, the postgraduate study of the science of gratitude cannot at the feet of a realized soul like Srila Vyasadeva. Although Shukadeva Goswami was a liberated soul the very day of his birth, he still had to take lessons of Srimad Bhagavatam of Vyasadeva, who compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam under the instruction of another soul, Sri Narada Muni. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed a learned Brahmana to study Srimad Bhagavatam from a personal Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is based on the transcendental name, form, attributes, pastimes, entourage, and variegatedness of the Supreme Person, and it is spoken by the incarnation of the personality of Godhead, Srila Vyasadeva. Pastimes of the Lord are executed in cooperation with his pure devotees, and consequently historical incidences are mentioned in this great literature because they are related to Krishna. It is called Brahma Samhitam because it is the sound representative of Lord Krishna, like the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is the sound incarnation of the Lord because it is spoken by the Supreme Lord, and Srimad Bhagavatam is the sound representative of the Lord because it was spoken by the incarnation of the Lord about the activities of the Lord. As stated in the beginning of this book, it is the essence of the Vedic desired freedom and the natural commentation on the Brahma Sutras, the topmost philosophical thesis on the subject matter of Brahmana. Vyasadeva appeared at the end of Dwapara Yuga as the son of Satyavati, and therefore the word Dwapara Adam, or the beginning of Dwapara Yuga, in this context means just prior to the beginning of the Kali Yuga. The logic of this statement, according to Srila Jiva Goswami, is comparable to that of calling the upper portion of the tree the beginning. The root of the tree is the beginning of the tree, but in common knowledge, the upper portion of the tree is seen first. In that way, the end of the tree is accepted as its beginning. Next slide. O saintly king, I was certainly situated perfectly in transcendence, yet I was still attracted by the delineation of the pastimes of the Lord, who is described by enlightened verses. The Absolute Truth is realized as the impersonal Brahman at the first instance by philosophical speculation, and later as the Supersoul by further progress of transcendental knowledge. But if, by the grace of the Lord, an impersonalist is enlightened by the superior statements of Srimad Bhagavatam, he is also converted into a transcendental devotee of the personality of Godhead. With a profound knowledge, we cannot adjust the idea of the personality of the Absolute Truth, and the personal activities of the Lord are deplored by the less intelligent impersonalists. But reasons and arguments, together with the transcendental process of approaching the Absolute Truth, help even the staunch impersonalist to become attracted by the personal activities of the Lord. A person like Shukadeva Goswami cannot be attracted by any mundane activity, but when such a devotee is convinced by a superior method, he is certainly attracted by the transcendental activities of the Lord. The Lord is transcendental, as are his activities. He is neither inactive nor impersonal. That very Srimad Bhagavatam I shall recite before you, because you are the most sincere devotee of Lord Krishna. One who gives full attention and respect to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam achieves unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord, the giver of salvation. Now, before I said it was the first instance of Srimad Bhagavatam, it was the second or third one. It's like the third edition.
Full attention.
The third edition was written down, which we have. First was given to Shukadeva Swami by Vyasadeva. Shukadeva Swami gave to Parikshit. Shukadeva Swami heard it there, and he narrated. So it was the third edition. Purport. Srimad Bhagavatam is recognized Vedic wisdom, and the system of receiving Vedic knowledge is called Avaroha Panta, or the process of receiving transcendental knowledge through bona fide disciplic succession. For advancement of material knowledge, there is a need for personal ability and researching aptitude. But in the case of spiritual knowledge, all progress depends more or less on the mercy of the spiritual master. The spiritual master must be satisfied with the disciple. Only then is knowledge automatically manifest before the student of spiritual science. The process should not, however, be misunderstood to be something like magical feats, whereby the spiritual master acts like a magician and injects spiritual knowledge into his disciple, as if surcharging him with an electrical current. The bona fide spiritual master reasonably explains everything to the disciple from the authorities of Vedic wisdom. The disciple can receive such teachings not exactly intellectually, but by submissive inquiries and a service attitude. The idea is that both the spiritual master and the disciple must be bona fide. In this case, the spiritual master Shukadeva Goswami is ready to recite exactly what he has learned from his great father Srila Vyasadeva, and the disciple Maharaj Parikshit is a great devotee of Lord Krishna. The devotee of Lord Krishna is he who believes sincerely that by becoming a devotee of the Lord, one becomes fully equipped with everything spiritual. This teaching is imparted by the Lord himself in the pages of the Bhagavad Gita, in which it is clearly described that the Lord, Shri Krishna, is everything, and that to surrender unto him solely and wholly makes one the most perfectly pious man. This unflinching faith in Lord Krishna prepares one to become student of Srimad Bhagavatam, and one who hears Srimad Bhagavatam from a devotee like Shukadeva Goswami is sure to attain salvation at the end, as Maharaj Parikshit did. The professional reciter of Srimad Bhagavatam and the pseudo-devotees whose faith is based on 1 week's hearing are different from Shukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit. Srila Vyasadeva explained Srimad Bhagavatam unto Shukadeva Goswami from the very beginning of the Janmadi Asya. That's the first verse. And so Shukadeva Goswami also explained it to the thing. Do you have the same word? Thing? We have this. Shukadeva Goswami also explained it to the thing.
Explained to the king.
Is it king, right?
Yeah, king.
Okay. Because I have thing.
That's printing.
I wanted to say maybe I never heard this word.
Yeah, I also know.
Okay. Mine is older version. So, let's explain to the king. Lord Krishna is described as the Mahapurusha in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, in his devotional feature as Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Lord Krishna himself in his devotional attitude, descended on earth to bestow special favors upon the fallen souls of this age of Kali. There are two verses particularly suitable to offer as prayers to this Mahapurusha feature of Lord Krishna. These are verses, you can read them. Okay. So this is verses from 11, 5, 33, 34. In other words, Purusha means the enjoyer, and Mahapurusha means the supreme enjoyer, or the supreme personality of God, Shri Krishna. One who deserves to approach the Supreme Lord Krishna is called the Mahapurushika. Anyone who hears Srimad Bhagavatam attentively from its bona fide reciter is sure to become a sincere devotee of the Lord, who is able to avoid ignorance. There was none so attentive as Maharaj Parikshit in the matter of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, and there was none so qualified as Shukadeva Goswami to recite the text of Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, anyone who follows in the footsteps of either the ideal reciter or the ideal hearer, Shukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit respectively, will undoubtedly attain salvation like them. Maharaj Parikshit attained salvation by hearing only, and Shukadeva Goswami attained salvation only by reciting. Recitation and hearing are two processes out of 9 devotional activities, and by strenuously following the principles, either in all or by parts, one can attain the absolute plane. So the complete text of Srimad Bhagavatam, beginning with Janmadi Asya verse up to the last one in the 12th canto, was spoken by Shukadeva Goswami for the attainment of salvation by Maharaj Parikshit. In the Padma Purana, it is mentioned that Gautama Muni advised Maharaj Ambarish to hear regularly Srimad Bhagavatam as it was recited by Shukadeva Goswami, and herein it is confirmed that Maharaj Ambarish heard Srimad Bhagavatam from the very beginning to the end, as it was spoken by Shukadeva Goswami. One who is actually interested in the Bhagavatam, therefore, must not play with it by reading or hearing a portion from here and a portion from there. One must follow in the footsteps of great kings like Maharaj Ambarish or Maharaj Parikshit, and hear it from a bona fide representative of Shukadeva Goswami. 11. O King, constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord after the ways of the great authorities is the doubtless and fearless way of success for all, including those who are free from all material desires, those who are desirous of all material enjoyment, and also those who are self-satisfied by dint of transcendental knowledge. Purport: in the previous verse, the great necessity for attaining attachment to Mukunda has been accredited. There are different types of persons who desire to attain success in different varieties of pursuits. Generally, the persons are materialists who desire to enjoy the fullest extent of material gratification. Next to them are the transcendentalists who have attained perfect knowledge about the nature of material enjoyment and thus are aloof from such an illusory way of life. More or less, they are satisfied in themselves by self-realization. Above them are the devotees of the Lord, who neither aspire to enjoy the material world nor desire to get out of it. They are after the satisfaction of the Lord, Sri Krishna. In other words, the devotees of the Lord do not want anything on their personal account. If the Lord desires, devotees can accept all sorts of material facilities. And if the Lord does not desire this, the devotees can leave aside all sorts of facilities, even up to the limit of salvation. Nor are they self-satisfied, because they want the satisfaction of the Lord only. In this verse, Sri Shukadeva Goswami recommends the transcendental chanting of the holy name of the Lord. By offenseless chanting and hearing of the holy name of the Lord, one becomes acquainted with the transcendental form of the Lord, and then with the attributes of the Lord, and then with the transcendental nature of his pastimes, etc. Here it is mentioned that one should constantly chant the holy name of the Lord after hearing it from authorities. This means that hearing from the authorities is the first essential. Hearing of the holy name gradually promotes one to the stage of hearing about his form, about his attributes, his pastimes, and so on. And thus the necessity of the chanting of his glories develops successively. This process is recommended not only for the successful execution of devotional service, but also even for those who are materially attached. According to Sri Shukadeva Goswami, this way of attaining success is an established fact, concluded not only by him, but also by all other previous acharyas. Therefore, there is no need of further evidence. The process is recommended not only for the progressive students in different departments of ideological success, but also for those who are already successful in their achievement as fruitive workers, as philosophers, or as devotees of the Lord. Srila Jiva Goswami instructs that the chanting of the holy name of the Lord should be loudly done, and it should be performed offenselessly as well, as recommended in the Bhagavatam. One can deliver himself from the effects of all sins by surrendering himself unto the Lord. One can deliver himself from all offenses at the feet of the Lord by taking shelter of his holy name. But one cannot protect himself if one commits an offense at the feet of the holy name of the Lord. Such offenses are mentioned in the Padma Purana as being 10 in number. The first offense is to vilify the great devotees who have preached about the glories of the Lord. The second offense is to see the holy names of the Lord in terms of worldly distinction. The Lord is the proprietor of all the universes, and therefore he may be known in different places by different names, but that does not in any way qualify the fullness of the Lord. Any nomenclature which is meant for the Supreme Lord is as holy as the others, because they are all meant for the Lord. Such holy names are as powerful as the Lord, and there is no bar for anyone in any part of the creation to chant and glorify the Lord by the particular name of the Lord as it is locally understood. They are all auspicious, and one should not distinguish such names of the Lord as material commodities. The third offense is to neglect the orders of the authorized acharyas or spiritual masters. The fourth offense is to vilify scriptures or Vedic knowledge. The fifth offense is to define the holy name of the Lord in terms of one's mundane calculation. The holy name of the Lord is identical with the Lord himself, and one should understand the holy name of the Lord to be no different from him. The sixth offense is to interpret the holy name. The Lord is not imaginary, nor is his holy name. There are persons with a poor fundamental knowledge who think the Lord to be in imagination of the worshipper, and therefore think his holy name to be imaginary. Such a chanter of the name of the Lord cannot achieve the desired success in the matter of chanting the holy name. The seventh offense is to commit sins intentionally on the strength of the holy name. In the scriptures it is said that one can be liberated from the effects of all sinful actions simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord. One who takes advantage of this transcendental method and continues to commit sins on the expectation of neutralizing the effects of sins by chanting the holy name of the Lord is the greatest offender at the feet of the holy name. Such an offender cannot purify himself by any recommended method of purification. In other words, one may be a sinful man before chanting the holy name of the Lord, but after taking shelter in the holy name of the Lord and becoming immune One should strictly restrain oneself from committing sinful acts with a hope that his method of chanting the holy name will give him protection. The eighth offense is to consider the holy name of the Lord and his chanting method to be equal to some material auspicious activity. There are various kinds of good works for material benefits, but the holy name and his chanting are not mere auspicious holy services. Undoubtedly the holy name is holy service, but he should never be utilized for such purposes. Since the holy name and the Lord are of one and the same identity, one should not try to bring the holy name into the service of mankind. The idea is that the Supreme Lord is the supreme enjoyer. He is no one's servant or order supplier. Similarly, since the holy name of the Lord is identical with the Lord, one should not try to utilize the holy name for one's personal service. The ninth offense is to instruct those who are not interested in chanting the holy name of the Lord about the transcendental nature of the holy name. If such instruction is imparted to an unwilling audience, the act is considered to be an offense at the feet of the holy name. The tenth offense is to become uninterested in the holy name of the Lord, even after hearing of the transcendental nature of the holy name. The effect of chanting the holy name of the Lord is perceived by the chanter as liberation from the conception of false egoism. False egoism is exhibited by thinking oneself to be the enjoyer of the world and thinking everything in the world to be meant for the enjoyment of one's self only. The whole materialistic world is moving under such false egoism of eye and mind. But the factual effect of chanting the holy name is to become free from such misconception. Is there any other offense?
Yeah, I just really surprised that say if we just like chant the holy name for world peace, is it an offense? It's just for world peace, like not to have any war or anything.
We just heard here about that. He explained for what should be the holy name, what is it holy name for?
Yeah.
Not for anything, but so nothing mundane should be used for nothing mundane. So world peace and stuff like that shouldn't be used for that purpose. But it's okay to clarify these things. So it's not such an offense if one is doing it without knowledge. There's also, just want to add, there's I'm not sure when was this added, but the 11th offense is also there. We always recite in the temples, we recite these 10 offenses before the chanting session begins, and then it's the 11th offense, which is not in Padma Purana, but it's like, it's the being inattentive while chanting. And some say sometimes that this is the basis for all other offenses, for being inattentive. That was, need to check when was this added. It's not from the original source. Saying you're chanting holy name of the Lord.
But you're thinking something else.
Which is attentive to the Lord.
Yeah.
Then be not attending means ignoring the Lord. You call him the Lord.
Yeah.
You call him the Lord for service. You're begging for service, for mercy. And then you're ignoring. This is
can be a distractor. Can be a distractor.
Distract?
Yeah, say something is distracting while you are chanting, and then we just indulge into that distractor. So can be an offensive. Like you're not paying enough attention, you're just saying it. I mean, like if someone's saying, but they're not paying attention, just divert their mind.
feel like, you know, you take and you know, kind of don't have control,
Yeah.
I mean, we all work in progress, right?
Yeah.
We're practitioners.
Yes.
So that's why before we start chanting, usually we remember these offenses. So when it will appear, when it does appear to all the beginners, and even later, the distractions and pullings of the mind come, and as soon as we realize that, we bring the mind back. That's the recommended. I mean, we don't. We are, in general, the offenses are there. That's why, you know, we don't feel the full potency of the bliss of chanting. Because only by chanting only once without offenses, and you know, because they are become. I mean, it's described in different verses. Once becomes liberated.
Sorry, it's a silly question, but I just try to clarify.
Yeah. So I'm not also the best. You can find like online many who explain these things in detail, like offenses.
Yeah.
Only that maybe even specific offenses you can get of 10 or 15 minutes of someone senior or Prabhupada or something explaining in detail to clarify more. So that's right. So I can recommend the type in ISKCON Design 3. That's how we stop. We did. Tomorrow we continue 6:30.
Yeah.
In the verse
Text
12. Srimad Bhagavatam.